Indiana Jones has encountered some truly despicable people over the years, from rival archaeologists to Nazis, to heart-ripping maniacs to Nazis, to communists to Nazis. Noticing a bit of a pattern there. But out of all those villains, one in particular has stood out from the rest, and that man is Major Arnold Ernest Toht. During the writing process of Raiders of the Lost Ark, screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan, first draft, originally called Toht Belzig. I'm going to try and pronounce this as best I can. And he was originally going to be a cyborg with a robotic arm that could turn into a flamethrower. And while that idea sounds pretty awesome, it was George Lucas who decided against it, thinking it was a bit too far-fetched. Another major change from the first draft was Toht's death. He was originally going to die during the desert chase scene, where the car he was in would have been driven off the side of a cliff, and for a long time that was going to be his fate, as it's included in the novelization for the film and the comic book adaptation. However, during filming, Steven Spielberg filmed the scene of the Nazis carrying the Ark to the opening ceremony before the desert chase scene, and Toht was included in that scene. In order to keep continuity, Toht had to survive till the Ark is opened, which leads to what is quite possibly the most iconic death scene in the franchise. By making a waxwork model of the actor's head, the ILM team used heat monitors to melt the wax while filming the process. Once in editing, the footage is spread up to give the illusion that the face is melting in a quicker fashion. The role of the character was offered to actor Klaus Kinski. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he had some unpleasant opinions about the script. So, the role went to English actor, the late Ronald Lacey, who even had to shave his hair for the part. During the scene in the desert, where he removes his hat, you can actually see the stubble of his hairline. Sadistic and ruthless, Toht was a Gestapo agent who was tasked with obtaining the Ark of the Covenant for Hitler. Trained in the art of interrogation and torture, Toht took great pride in his work and relished every opportunity to make someone suffer. Although he was tasked with the Ark mission, Toht himself didn't believe in the supernatural. He, like Indiana Jones, just saw the Ark as a symbol of power and historical value. Mostly standing in the background and usually very quiet, Toht had a surprising, intimidating presence about him. When he would speak, it always sounds like a whisper, but this just made him even more disturbing. Because he always wears an all-black attire, no matter what environment he's in, Toht had a sweating disposition. This just made his face come across as inhuman. And that's probably the best way to describe Toht, inhuman, especially when we first see him in the film. He arrives with a group of henchmen to Marion's bar in Naples to locate the headpiece to the Staff of Ra, which would help the Nazis locate the Ark. After a short conversation, Toht tried to take the piece by force, but not before he tortured Marion with a hot iron. However, Indiana Jones appeared and saved her. Leading into a bar fight, Toht noticed the headpiece on the floor. During the fight, he tries to grab it. However, it had been caught in a small fire, and the heat from it began to burn into Toht's hand, leading him to scream out of the bar and escape. Later in Egypt, thanks to the burnt marks in his hand, the Nazis were able to make a copy of the headpiece. But since he only grabbed one side of it, it was incomplete. Nevertheless, Toht was still tasked by Colonel Diedrich to interrogate Marion again, after she was captured earlier on. However, he still didn't get much out of her, but did manage to throw her down into the Well of Souls, after taking the Ark from Jones. He joined Diedrich and Belloc, the archaeologists hired to help the Nazis find the Ark, in the main staff car to oversee the Ark get delivered to Hitler. However, Jones managed to escape and take the Ark back from them after a chase. But after tracking down Jones and retrieving the Ark, he joined his fellow Nazis on a small island where Belloc would begin a ceremony to open the Ark. That night, standing with Diedrich and Belloc, Toht witnessed the Ark being opened. At first, it looked like it contained nothing but sand. Seeing humour in this, as he never believed in the power the Ark possessed, Toht's skepticism soon turned into astonishment as the spirits soon started to appear. However, once the spirits showed their true form, Toht let out a terrified scream as the Ark's power starts killing all the Lucan soldiers. Toht's fate, however, would be far more gruesome. Maybe because he was closer to the Ark, or God had a twisted sense of humour, Toht's face started melting from the flames erupting from the Ark, and all that was left of him was swept up in a whirlwind and back into the Ark. Since he was killed off in the first film, Toht never made another appearance in the series. However, a comic book series, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, published a story in issue 10 called The Gold Goddess. In the story, it's revealed that Toht had a sister called Elsa, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, who wanted revenge on Jones for her brother's death, but met her own end before she could. During the development of the fourth Indiana Jones film, which eventually became Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, an idea was considered for the plot to involve the Nazis seeking revenge on Jones for Toht and the other Nazis' deaths. However, Spielberg disliked the idea and it was dropped. In the video games, Toht appears as a boss in levels based on the bar fight seen in the film. He's also playable in both LEGO Indiana Jones games, but doesn't possess any special abilities. Merchandise-wise, there have been several toys based on Toht. It's worth pointing out that on some official posters, Toht appears instead of the other villains, giving the impression that he's the main villain of the film to new audiences. But in the context of the story, he is just a high-ranked henchman. But that hasn't stopped him from having a big impact on the fandom. Despite being fictional, Toht was part of the Gestapo, a secret group of Nazis that committed some of the most horrendous crimes in the Second World War, giving the character an even darker legacy, almost symbolically representing some of the darker moments in human history, showing how true evil can be silently standing in the background and waiting for the right moment to strike. Okay, that's a bit of a dark way to end this video. Does anyone have a favourite Toht moment? And is there any other Indiana Jones villains you want to have a look at or analysed? Feel free to comment below and have a nice day.